David, I know you moved recently and things can be hectic, but why are you forwarding your email to my address? I'm getting mail that says Law Office of Chad Sherwood. Why am I getting your legal bills here?
I don't know. Just pay them, all right? And Chad, what kind of a person rickrolls a charity? That's what I want to know. Our host, apparently.
I didn't do anything. Good evening, everybody. Good morning. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Welcome back to our Continuing Hoops HD preseason podcast. This is our Pac-12 podcast. If you did not watch our Big Ten podcast before watching this, do me a favor. Do not watch the last 2 minutes of it. Just the warning. Don't do it. David completely sabotaged us once again. And in fact,
you're the one that screwed over a charity.
We're operating the rest of this podcast, the rest of the preseason under a show cause penalty.
What did I do? I try and do something nice, and Chad ruins it.
Anyhow, I am your host, Chad Sherwood. I got Matt Sikowski to one side, David Griggs on the other, John Sleek and John Titel down below us. We are going to be talking some Pac-12 hoops here. And Titel, you're an Arizona grad. Why don't we start right on the top with the Wildcats and their prospects for the year, especially in light of the fact they had some little problem with one of their assistant coaches in the offseason.
Just a little bit. It's already cost us a recruit. Javon Quinterly from the classes ahead is gone. Note to self, do not pay recruits $15,000 to attend your school. And assistant coach Emmanuel Book Richardson got the book thrown at him and is hopefully never going to set foot on campus again because I think he is the cause of the problem. I think Miller is insulated. I pray he is because I think he's a great coach and I hope he's a clean recruiter. But it's really thrown a big kink into the plans. I've had friends say we're going to have scholarship reductions or postseason bans. I pray not, but it has not been a fun offseason in Tucson, Arizona.
I also pray that it doesn't go back too many years in the back because Book Richardson had also been an assistant under Sean Miller when they were at Xavier.
Well, I got to tell you, Titel, I won't be too worried about Sean Miller because we do have a quote from him right here, in fact.
I know nothing.
So, he's okay. Trust me, he's okay.
Oh, God.
Let's actually talk about the on-court stuff, though, Titel. Let me stick with you. How good is this Arizona team going to be, assuming they can keep the off-court stuff off the court?
On paper, they're fantastic, but you have to keep in mind that they've had a top 8 recruiting class for the past 8 years, if my math is right. They bring in guys who are lottery picks. They got Stanley Johnson. They got Aaron Gordon. They have all the talent. But as you're well aware now, thanks to Mark Few, Sean Miller is the best coach to never make a Final Four. Not just active, maybe ever. I'm not sure. It's troubling, and I have a lot of friends who are Final Four or bust, and they think the season is a failure if we lose to Xavier in the tournament before the Final Four. I assure you it's not in my mind. I would be happy to make the Sweet 16 every single year. Is it nice to win a championship once? Of course it is. But I'm not going to get mad if the team doesn't make it all the way. Deandre Aiden, the big McDonald's All-American. They bring back Trier. Hopefully he's done with the PEDs. They got Parker Jackson Cartwright, the point guard who's 5 feet tall. Raleigh Alkins. The team is very good on paper. We'll see what happens.
Well, look on the bright side, John. It wasn't Wisconsin.
Yeah. What did they have out of conference?
Alkins' prognosis. I thought he hurt his foot.
Who?
Alkins. Does he have a foot injury?
Why you gotta rain on my parade? Let me try to enjoy the moment.
Okay. Well, Matt, let me turn to you then. What are your thoughts on his Arizona team?
Man, they should be good. It's a roster that goes together well, has basically all your ingredients. You've got some freshman shooter, Brandon Randolph. This, in theory, they were my number one team before crap started hitting the fan. Now I think I trust Villanova a little bit more than them, given that they don't have crap hit the fan. In fact, as Javon Quinterly proves, one team was clean there and one team wasn't. But yeah, I think Sean Miller is a good enough coach that they just go through it, and it'll be a great run to the Final Four until it's vacated in the near future.
Salika, you're our schedule expert. How about their schedule this year? What's it looking like, and is it going to help them or hurt them?
They're going to be part of a loaded battle of Atlantis Field where they'll actually be on the opposite side of the bracket from either Purdue or Villanova. So they would have to go through NC State and either SMU or Northern Iowa to get to that point. But other than that, they will have a game against Texas A&M and Phoenix at the NBA Arena. Also games at UNLV, and also rekindling an old rivalry of sorts when they go to the Pit at New Mexico in December.
Woo-hoo.
It's not called the Pit still, is it?
The Dream Style Arena there, yes. Also, home game against Alabama. We're going to be talking about Alabama when we do our SEC show. But, David, maybe not that great of a schedule for Arizona, especially because they're kind of on the wrong side of the bracket there. And UNLV and New Mexico are not exactly going to win you any points, are they?
Not in recent years. Probably not this year either. I think they'll be better than they were in previous years, which upgrades them from sucky to bad. So,
yeah. I mean, their first three games: Northern Arizona, UMBC, and Cal State Bakersfield. I mean,
right. Bakersfield's probably the best. Yeah. I mean, those are good. Well, two of those three are really good under the radar teams and really good stories. But I love this Arizona team. I could see them finishing the year with an extremely bloated record, and I could see them making it to the Elite Eight and then losing at the buzzer again.
Well, Titel, I do have a little bit of good news for you when it comes to the Pac-12, is that Arizona wasn't the only team with an assistant coach that was arrested by the FBI. Same thing here. You've got Tony Bland was part of that whole thing there. He's gone as well. Do you think that USC is going to suffer on the court, or do you think that they're going to avoid it as well?
I think that they will be okay. I think it's good to draw the parallel because I think it's very similar in terms of key assistant coaches who are trusted by the head coaches doing what I think are very bad things. In terms of on the court, USC looks really good. Very veteran heavy with the great backcourt of Jordan McLaughlin and Elijah Stewart. Up front, Chimezi Metu, Benny Boatwright. They got a transfer from Louisville and Jaquan Aaron. They were this close to beating Baylor in the tournament last year. They bring in an O'Bannon because UCLA does not have the run of all the O'Bannons apparently. I think Andy Enfield is a very good team and a very great wife, and I think he's going to have a very good year.
And Matt, we also got Duke transfer Derek Thornton coming in here. O'Bannon is going to sue the NCAA at some point. That's a given when your name is O'Bannon. Yes. But how good is this USC team? I know our colleague Kyle Lamb was saying before he couldn't be here tonight, but he didn't understand them. I do understand them. I'm really high on this team.
Yeah, no, I have him as a 3 seed in my projected tournament, although once again to probably be later vacated. But it'll be another very good run while it happens. And no, you could do any kind of lineup combinations. Could play fast, shoot it well. We haven't even mentioned they're probably their best NBA prospect in DeAnthony Melton, one of the modern day kind of positionless guards and really good defender. His skill game is improved. No, this is a really nice team that going to have a lot of fun, and then, well, they might all come crashing down like it seems to happen for any sport at USC, but
David, when we did our Big Ten podcast, we talked about Richard Pitino out of Minnesota and how we didn't believe in him, and he made us into believers last year. The other guy that made me into a believer last year was Andy Enfield out at USC.
I've liked him all along.
Okay.
I've liked him ever since FGCU. And again, like what looked to be a rebuilding year, they went back to the tournament. I think he's been doing a great job. It took him a little while to get going, but his third and fourth season, he's done fantastically well.
And how good do you think this USC team is then, David?
Good. I think that they're going to end up vacating a lot of – okay, to elaborate a little more, I think that they're protected seed good, which is something I don't even recall the last time USC was a protected seed.
Stalika, do you want to go all out and say they may win the Pac-12, or do you think that's going to be Arizona?
I still think it's going to be Arizona that wins the Pac-12, but if I remember my research correctly, the last time USC had been a protected seed, I want to say 1992 when they were at Marquette, and I think you remember the last time they were there, and that was the the second round upset against Georgetown, where Hal McGuire was going holy mackerel on TV.
Was that Georgia Tech?
That was
Georgia Tech.
James Forrest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said Georgetown, but I knew you meant Georgia Tech.
Matt, Matt, when we're talking the Pac-12, we just talked about the first team we talked about had an assistant coach arrested. The second team had an assistant coach arrested. The third team didn't have anybody arrested. They're just covering up sexual assaults. Let's talk about Oregon a little bit here.
Yeah, it's I was not real high on them anyway, and now you got the off the court issues to compound. But no, I think they lost too much, and I guess I'm not. Everyone's on the Troy Brown hype train. I think if he were coming into a veteran roster where he could maybe be the fifth starter, I'd be about. I think he'd be a great contributor. I think asking him to be one of the guys from day one is a little too much. And
you talk about Elijah Brown?
No, Troy Brown, the fresh. Elijah
okay.
Brown, that's actually one of the JUCO guys.
Oh, you're talking Troy Brown.
JUCO grad transfer, Elijah Brown, another one who has not met a shot he doesn't like. And just, I don't like the blend of this. Payton Pritchard, I think, is going to be a real good college player. I wouldn't be stunned if he doesn't finish his career in Oregon after all these recent shenanigans and I don't know how Dan Altman can survive this. Results there notwithstanding, but it's a weird roster. I know P generally does well with weird rosters where you don't really have a too big guy. You have a bunch of soft 3 and 4s, but I'm not feeling it, and I think they pull the Final Four to NIT drop.
David, do you agree with him that they don't even make the NCAA tournament after the Final Four run last year?
Not at all. Like I think that they're at least an NCAA tournament team. I don't think that they're up on the one line for, I think this would be the third year in a row, or is it the second? But I do think that they'll recede some, but I don't see them falling to the outside of the bubble. I think they're at least in the field.
Titel, where are you on the Oregon Ducks here?
They lost a ton of talent to the draft and Europe. I love hotshot freshman in Brown, but schedule. You open up with 3 games: Coppin State, Prairie View, A&M, and Alabama State. Was Lemoyne unavailable? I mean, come on.
I think they can win all 3 of those.
David is making a bold prediction that they start out 3-0. Stalika, how about beyond these top 3 teams? Who do you think the next best team is in the Pac-12? That if it's not the defending Final Four team and it's not Arizona or USC, who's next up?
That's going to be a little bit of a tough one, but I think one team that just disappeared and may reappear this year is going to be Oregon State. We know about Trey Tinkle, and then they also have Eubanks as one of their other supporting guys. But we also go to their schedule. They're going to be part of the Advocare Invitational down in Orlando, where they'll face St. John's, either Missouri or Long Beach. I mean, those aren't going to be terribly difficult for them to win. But it seems like their toughest game is probably going to be at Portland against St. Louis.
You got to give me a second here. I'm still scrolling down in my notes here to find where I talked about a team that went 5-27 last year. Titel, can you help me out? This Oregon State team, could they actually be a tournament team this year after 5 wins?
Could be. You also have to remember the MVP of this team is the trainer. So Stephen Thompson Jr., whose dad is an assistant coach, missed 6 games last year with a stress reaction in his left foot. Trey Tinkle only played 6 games last year with a wrist injury. If healthy, the team is good on paper, and they have people throughout the lineup. It's not just a bunch of perimeter players. Drew Eubanks can bang down low as a power forward. They also are very heavy on juniors and sophomores, so I don't think it's this year. I think next year they're a legit chance of making a tourney if everybody stays around and is healthy.
I don't know if they're a tournament team, but I agree that this team has a pulse. They're not going to be 5-27 this year if they stay healthy. Like, it's going to be I could see going to Oregon State being like a snake pit to where they might not be a tournament team, but they can beat tournament teams at home, and it's going to be a tough place to play.
Matt, you had a comment on them?
Yeah, I just love how they're dynamic. It's all in the family. You have Trey Tinkle, the son of Coach Wade Tinkle, and then the Thompson brothers, Ethan and Steven. Those are actually probably the 3 best players. They happen to be the head coach and the top assistant coach's kids.
Matt, maybe I'll stick with you a second here. I don't agree with Stalika that Oregon State may be the 4th best team. Can you tell us who the 4th best team in the Pac-12 really is?
Well, I think the fourth best team is Stanford. We're missing the third best team, which I think is still UCLA.
Okay, then let's talk a little UCLA first, and we'll get to Stanford next.
Yeah. And I think UCLA, you lose Lonzo Ball, and I think he really changed the dynamic of that team. But there's still a lot of talent. You got freshman Jalen Hands, Chris Wilkes. You still got Thomas Welsh back. You have Aaron Holiday back. It's a little bit, it's going to be a different style. And are they going to go from extreme unselfishness to maybe on the selfish side? Because I think Aaron Holiday played a little bit better off the ball with Lonzo, but it's still a lot of talent there that, I think you might be a touch up and down. They might be something like 21-11, 22-10. Something that'll get them in a 6-7 seed range, but still a lot of talent and still a team I don't think you're going to want to see opposite in your bracket in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah, Tytel, he mentioned Jalen Hands, Chris Wilkes, a pair of 5-star McDonald's All-Americans coming in. Is Steve Alford a coach that can pull these guys in together with guys like Holiday and be successful with so many pieces lost?
He could, but I think Matt makes a great point in the loss of ball. I mean, it's one thing to lose if, North Carolina loses a bunch of front court guys or Duke loses all their freshmen going pro. When you lose Lonzo Ball, obviously the number 2 pick, we know he's good. He was that whole team. He made them go. There's a reason they scored 100 points a game and played at 90 miles an hour. You cannot replace him. I don't care how good the hotshot freshmen are. They also lost other components like Leaf and stuff. It's going to take a while for them. I think they could be the third best team in the conference, but I could easily see them as the fifth best because of teams like Stanford and Utah who are more juniors and seniors who are experienced and veteran players.
Well, and David, if you didn't know that how good Lonzo Ball was, you just ask his father, right?
Yeah. and you had one of the greatest tweets ever that he was because what was it he said that he was offered $200,000 and turned it down or something like that, and your theory was that he was offered that just to shut up, and he turned it.
But Matt, let me go back to you mentioned Stanford as well, and I know you want to talk a little bit about them. Are the Cardinal an NCAA tournament team this year?
Yes, I think, they're the big climber in the Pac-12 and a league that I don't think is going to have a ton of bids here as well hit the edge, but I think Stanford will be one of them. They've returned some, and I think they have a real nice recruiting class I think will help them change the dynamic. I think Jared Haas plays a little bit more his style this year, gets away from the Johnny Dawkins, which had been, slow pace the last few years there. And that the key, I think you think about Michael Porter as a Washington decommit, but Dejan Davis, borderline 4-star, 5-star guard, I think he'll play nicely with Robert Cartwright in that backcourt, turn all the front court guys, and have some other nice recruits, including a guy who probably doesn't get a ton of pub here, but Oscar Da Silva, I believe, looked really good in the summer and some international tournaments. I think 6'9", about 210, kind of that modern day 3-4. I think will provide some shooting, and that's will be key. They need to shoot it better and be a better offensive team. I think they will be. They'll be a decent enough offense, very good defensively still, and in the tournament in the 9-10 seed range.
David, Jared Haas in his second season now out there in Stanford, 14-17 last year. The one guy Matt didn't mention, Reed Travis, 17.4 points, 8.9 rebounds a game. This guy could be a double-double average this season. You with Matt that they're a tournament team?
I think they could be. I don't know if I'm ready to lock them in yet. I mean, again, we just haven't seen them play enough yet. But it's October. But, I think that they could be. I think that they're much improved. And Matt brought up a good point about what they added. I'm still going to say no, but I think that they're close, and it wouldn't shock me at all if they made it all the way in.
Well, Tytel, are you on the Stanford bandwagon, or is there another team that we haven't discussed that you think might be a tournament caliber team in the Pac-12?
It's going to be an off year in the Pac. So if I had to pick somebody at gunpoint, maybe Utah, just because they have all these experienced guys like David Collette, the transfer from Utah State, with a double-double in the NIT last year, Gabe Beeler at the small forward, Cedric Bearfield, a junior who transferred from SMU, and I like Coach Kraskowiak. It could be like a 3-bid league. We'll find out in a few minutes, I suppose, when you ask everybody. But the 3 spot is up for grabs. I think it's Arizona, USC, and then everybody else.
Well, Stalika, how about that Utah team? I know you wanted to discuss them a little bit also. You're a big fan of them, correct?
Well, I was a bigger fan of them 2 years ago, but I certainly wasn't a fan of what their schedule was last year when you look at how many non-D1 cupcakes. But it seemed like they were just trying to get ready for David Collette to become eligible. But they were really sort of about 500-ish. But I'm not going to see that much changing for the Utes this year.
I like their experience. I could see them sneaking in as the fourth team. One of the games that is on their schedule this year that it proved to be too intense in the past, but it's back on there, is the Holy War's back. So.
Oh, there we go. At least
See,
that's back.
The puppet thinks of the Holy War, but I like to think of the Men Who Speak Up main event that they play in Las Vegas where they take on Ole Miss and either Rice or UNLV.
Yeah. Did they play in football this year? Not to go off on a tangent, but I don't know if they did or not.
You're already off on a tangent, David, but you normally are.
Right.
Matt, how about Arizona State and their curtain of distraction? If it's assuming that's back again this year, is this a team that could maybe not make the NCAA tournament, but at least challenge for the top 6 in the conference?
Yeah, they're going to be a lot better this year. I think you returned that great backcourt, Trey Holder, Shannon Evans, real interesting freshman coming in, Kamani Lawrence. They brought from the East Coast. In a way, you had a lot of Big East offers of that come out to the East Coast or the West Coast in Arizona State. Be a big piece for them. It's key is can Hurley get it together. It's like he's had some pieces before and it hasn't meshed. And it's going to be the time where it's got to start happening fairly soon for him. I think it is. He's actually got a monster recruiting class coming in a year from now. So if some signs here, this could be a great point for the future. If not, well, given how high intensity is in that, it could go sour. So this is one of those really probably either maybe even top 4 of the conference, or if it falls apart, this could be the beginning of the end of Bobby Hurley at Arizona State.
Well, Hightail, maybe the real question for Arizona State then is how many entertaining ways could Bobby Hurley get thrown out of a game?
Not enough, in my humble opinion. I always like it when he is. I also can't believe, he was really this up-and-coming coach at Buffalo. I think it's safe to say he's now the 3rd best coach in his own family, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I have to admit, Bobby Hurley had one of the memorable one-liners last year when he said, if you're going to get a win on the Arizona road trip, you better go to bleeping Tucson to get the win. And look what happened the following couple nights later.
Yeah, sometimes it's not good to have cameras in your locker room. Jeez.
Stalika, let me go back to one more team. I know there's another team that you're a big fan of. Colorado. David, they're not in the Big 12 anymore. They are in the Pac-12.
Shut up. God, I hate
how about the Buffs? Do you see anything from them this year?
Well, they're going to have a couple guys coming back in Dominique Collier, and I think it's George King. But this is another team that under Tad Boyle, they seem to be somewhat of a perennial, not necessarily contender for the Pac-12, but at least contending for NCAA tournaments more years than not. I mean, if we look at their schedule this year, they will have a game at Xavier. They will have a Colorado State game on the road, which is part of the Front Range fixture.
Love the Front Range.
And then they also have a game against Iowa, which for some reason is being played in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is probably the Sanford Pentagon, another one of our favorite facilities.
Yeah.
Matt, another team here that, let me get it correct, they were not an NCAA tournament team. They were an NIT tournament team last year, though, but the Cal Bears lost their head coach and a lot more, didn't they?
Yeah, no Kwanzaa Martin, no Ivan Rabb, basically no chance.
No chance.
They'll be fighting with the Washington schools at the bottom, and I definitely at least like the Huskies above them. It's a bad. I mean, I will give surprising coach named Wyking Jones credit. He's got some good recruits coming in next year, but he needs them, and it's gonna be painful this year for them.
Yeah, Titel, Kwanzaa Martin, like you said, going from Cal to Missouri. When we talk about Washington, they kind of lost somebody to Missouri as well, a freshman that was supposed to be pretty good. Anything from any of these bottom 3 schools, really, Cal, Washington, or Washington State, that you think could be anything good this season?
I do not. I like the track records, though, in terms of the pedigrees. At Cal, King Jones was an assistant to Pitino at Louisville, won a ring in 2013. Mike Hopkins at Washington, an assistant to Boeheim at Syracuse, won a ring back in the day. Hopkins' assistant coach Dave Rice won a title as a player for Tarkanian at UNLV, and his assistant coach Cameron Dollar won a title as a player at UCLA. So I like the championship pedigrees. These guys know what it takes to win. Unfortunately, it will take them a while to get their team to make that happen.
Where's Cameron Dollar?
Assistant in Washington.
Okay.
Yeah, he had been the coach at Seattle. Now he's at Washington.
He had been. Yeah, I didn't realize he no longer was.
Yes.
Not that he had done anything to warrant staying there. I just didn't realize that he wasn't there anymore.
Well, that's why he is no longer there. But David, talking about head coaches in Washington schools, how about Ernie Kent's shots at Washington State here? My question to you, does he survive this season?
If he doesn't kill himself, maybe. It is going to be a long year. Wazoo is every year there's a Power 5 school that is insanely bad, and this year it's Wazoo. Oregon State won 5 games last year. Does Wazoo even win 5 this year? They're awful.
Yeah, Matt, you follow the recruiting. Roberto Gittins decided to go to junior college instead of going to play for Ernie Kent.
Yeah, probably not a bad move because hey, you can't do any worse for your next school. So, hey, why not open things back up and hey, let's try again in the future? Because good Lord, you made a bad life decision signing with Ernie Kent in the first place.
Yeah, but what about Eastern Washington? It's the idea that Wazoo is the 3rd best team in the state by a mile, and Washington's the second. How are they so bad? I just don't understand it. Even football has it going there, which is more, I would think, harder to. Why is Wazoo this awful? Ever since Tony Bennett left, they're just awful.
Just wait till mid-December when they get clobbered by next-door neighbor Idaho when they go on the road to face the Vandals.
Yeah, and Idaho's, I mean, by under-the-radar standards, Idaho's pretty good. Like Wazoo, by under-the-radar standards, is bad. By, Power 5 standards, they're awful. I mean, they're just atrocious.
Well, I don't think David is very high on Washington State this year from what we just heard. But let me Tytel, do you have a Conference Player of the Year from the Pac-12?
I do. It is Mr. PED himself, Alonzo Trier. I think he's clean, and I think he's great. The X factor is he might not even be the best player on his team. Everything I hear about Deandre Aiden is that he's fantastic. 7-foot center. He's one of those 3 high schools and 4-year guys, which I hate. But they had the red and blue game the other day, and he had 21 or 23 points. Aiden could be the real deal, but I'm going to go with Trier right now because I don't love rookies.
Look, do you think that the guy from Stanford there, Reed Travis, could just put up the numbers and put his team in the tournament and maybe get some serious consideration in that regard?
If he averages a double-double, which he, I think, could, and I'll go with should, I think he's that good. If he gets his team in the tournament with 20 wins and a double-double, he has to be in the conversation. I just think he has other guys around him. I mean, Michael Humphrey is solid from Phoenix, Arizona. So I don't know if it's just going to be Reed Travis and 4 random dudes, but if he has a double-double and makes the tourney, of course he's in the conversation.
All right. Well, on that note, let me run through each of you like we'd like to do at the end of these podcasts and ask you, number 1, who's going to win the conference, and number 2, how many bids we're getting. And Sleeka, let me start with you.
I'm going to say there's going to be 4 bids in the Pac-12 this year. It's going to be Arizona, UCLA, and USC as mortal locks, and Oregon is kind of a soft lock simply because I just don't believe anyone else is going to get above the cut line this year.
All right. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have 4 teams as well. Arizona winning it. I think it'd be a close race with USC, but Arizona gets UCLA and USC and UCLA both at home, and that's all they play them. So that alone, I think they'll tip it. And then I think, the two LA schools, SC, UCLA, and also, like I said, I have Stanford as my 4th team, and that's it. And like I said, I predicted the Ducks to go from Final Four to NIT, and unfortunately, I know all too well how that can happen.
I'm with you there on the Stanford thing, but I actually have 5 teams. I have Arizona winning it, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Stanford making the field. But there are a lot of other conferences that are going to be deep this year, so I would not be shocked to see it being only 4 bids. Titel, your thoughts?
I think 4 is a good number. I think my Wildcats will win it all, but I've been burned before. I also, to John's point, I don't see UCLA as a lock. I mean, they have a lot of great talent. The schedule, Georgia Tech, Creighton, Michigan, Cincy, and Kentucky, all before Christmas. That is a tough schedule for a team that lost a lot of talent.
David, last but not least.
I'm going with 4. I like Arizona to not just win, but run away from the conference. I mean, I think that they're that good. I think that they're potentially Final Four good. So I really like them. No one else. Everyone else is. I don't even know if we have anybody else in the protected seed range, except for maybe USC. I like them a lot, and then my other 2 are UCLA and Oregon.
All right. Well, I guess on that note, I do want to thank everybody for joining us for this Pac-12 preview. We will be back really soon with more previews. I think we're going to have the Big 12 or the SEC coming up next, one of those 2. So keep a look at that on the website. But again, on behalf of Matt Zukowski, David Griggs, John Sleeka, and John Titel down there, I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Have a great night, everybody.